Hi again, everybody. This video is going to be a little bit different because you're going to be working with documents that you have on your computer already. I urge you to use this video as something to come back to because if you try to do it all while you're watching the video, you're probably going to lose things. So you can watch parts of the video, come back to it, do your work, come back to it. But what I'm going to work on today is teaching you how to use census records as you're working on your Fallen Hero project. So I'm going to show you guys the census records for my uncle who was killed in the war, as if I was doing my Fallen Hero project on my uncle at the same time you guys are doing your work. So I am going to start by making myself a little Google document and telling myself what document I'm working with first, which historical document I'm working with first. So I'm starting with the 1920 census. All right. And in that census, every census looks a little different, just to warn you. The 1920 looks different from the 30, looks different from the 40. So in the 1920 census, what am I looking at here? Well, I'm in the state of Pennsylvania, Lawrence County, Newcastle City. So I'm just going to make myself a note at the top that it was Newcastle, Lawrence County, Pennsylvania is where they were. Now, something that is pretty common among all of these censuses, censi? I don't know what the plural of censuses is. Censuses. Almost all of them have the street name along the side here. You see how it's like sideways, like perpendicular to the rest of the information? They have the name of the street over here and then the house number in the first column. And that's going to be the same in the 20, 30, and 40 census. So as I look here, and I'm going to zoom in on this, it says they live on Scott Street. And where on the Scott Street do the Boyles live? 102. So 102 Scott Street is the home of the Boyles. All right. Who lives there? All right. Who lives there? A dad and a mom, Tom and Mary. Okay? These are my great-grandparents. So you have Thomas P., dad, Mary M., mom, and then you have a son named Thomas, son named William, son named George, a daughter named Mary Rita, a son named Paul, that's the fellow we're looking for, and a brother, George A. Now, when it says brother there, instead of son or daughter, it's a brother of Thomas P. Everybody is shown in their relation to the head of the house. Thomas P. is the head, Mary M. is the wife of Thomas. Thomas Jr., actually Thomas, I think the fifth in this case, is the son of Thomas. William is the son of Thomas. George is the son. You got what I'm getting at here. Okay. Now, what do we learn about them? We're going to learn their sex, male, female, male, 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 female, male, male. Okay, then we're going to learn their ages, and this is going to be important as we try to figure out, when the heck they were born. So Big Tom was born, or Big Tom is age 39 in 1920. Mary is 33. Tom is 7. Now, here's where it gets fun. You can actually figure out what their birth month is here, but we're not going to do all that. We're just going to say that Bill is 4. George is 3. Mary Rita is 2. And young Paul here is 1 3/12, which means he's 1 year and 3 months old. And that George, the brother, is 20. Okay, let's think about this for just a second. And we're looking at a family that has a 74321. These people have a lot of babies. Okay, so we get up here. We find out if they're married or single. We're not shocked to find out that Tom and Mary are the only ones married. Then we get the year they immigrated. The only one who's an immigrant is Tom P., my great-grandpa. He came here, came to U.S. 1882, became a citizen, in 1892. That's what it means up here, year naturalized, 1892. Then attended school. The only person who's attended school in this whole family is their 7-year-old. It's my grandpa. The rest of them have not attended school. But are they literate? Can they read and write? Lit. It's lit, bro. Okay. Where were they born? Well, everybody was born in Pennsylvania, except my great-grandpa, who was born in England. Okay, but what does he speak? He spoke Irish. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Now, birthplace of parents. This tells you where their parents were born. And now we find out that Tom's, and I'm not going to put all this information in here, but you may want to. I'm just not going to make this video 3 hours long. We find out that Big Tom's dad was born in Ireland, his mom was born in Ireland, and both his parents spoke Irish. We find out that his wife's parents, father was born in Ireland, mother was born in England, but they both spoke Irish. And then for all the kids, it's the same, right? It's going to be the same for each of the kids. We find out they all speak English. We find out what the old man's job is. Big Tom is a carpenter. His little brother is a laborer at a furnace. Now, that doesn't mean he works on the furnace in their house. It means he works at a steel mill. Okay, employment type, employed, wage. And that's it. That's all the information we have out of the 1920 census. Now, we'll quickly dive into the 30. Okay? And we'll kind of do the same thing again. 1930 census. What does it tell us? And you guys may be thinking, this is boring, this is dumb. This actually is a ton of information that will be exceptionally useful to you. Just gotta get these to load. Come on, 1930. You can start telling a story about somebody. Now, if you wanted to be cute, what could you do here? You could figure out that Paul, if he was 1 year old in 1920, and remember he was 1 year and 3 months old, you could probably figure out about when he was born, which would be 1918 or 1919. And you could calculate birth dates for everybody else based on their age. Okay, let's get into it with the 1930 census. Okay, again, where are we? Pennsylvania, Lawrence, Newcastle. I'm going to kind of abbreviate stuff. Now, where are they living? Let's look again. Remember, perpendicular is the street name. They're still on Scott Street. They're still at 102. So they're still living at 102 Scott Street. Who's in the house? Thomas P. Mary. Thomas R. Jr. William J. George. Mary Rita. Paul. Now, they got 3 more kids. Joseph. That's a familiar name. John and Arthur. Okay, again, relations. The brother named George is gone now. It's just the folks in there, okay? We also learned that their house is, up here, home value. Their house is worth $7,500. So I'm just going to make that note here, and we can come back to that later. Okay. We're going to find their ages. So, Big Tom is now 58. Mary is 43. Tom R is 18. Bill is 15. George is 13. Mary Rita is 12. Paul is 11. Joe is 8. Johnny is 5. Art is 4. Again, they have a lot of kids in a very short time. All right, and we know that their marital status, that the only ones married are the parents. We know how old they were when they got married now. They were 28 and 22 when they got married, so we could calculate a marriage date for them. I'm not going to copy all of this because it's the same as it was before. We've got the immigration year one more time, speaks English. Now, things are different for the old man's occupation. He is now a contractor. He's no longer working as a daily carpenter. Oh no, tell me my internet didn't crap out. Come on, internet. Be nice to me. Okay, yay. Okay. So we know the old man is now a contractor for buildings. He's not just a home carpenter anymore. He's a contractor. We know none of these folks are veterans. And that's all we're getting out of the 1930 census. So, that's kind of enough. Now we're in the 1940 census. Now, I want you guys to think about what happened in America between 1930 and 1940. Think about, we know that there's a war going on in Europe at this point, but think about what's happened in America specifically. America is in the middle of the Great Depression, right? The Great Depression started in very late 1929. As you guys remember from your reading, it's bad but not terrible at the beginning of 1930, and then it gets really bad throughout the 30s. So the 1940 census is many times going to show us a lot of changes. And one of the things that happened is that a good 20% of the nation's population went homeless during the Depression, or they had to move. And so the 1940 census is going to ask some questions that no census ever asked before. So we're going to start by approaching this like the previous censuses, but then we're going to dive into some different things. Okay, so where are we? Oh, we're not in Newcastle, Pennsylvania anymore. We are in East Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Ohio. So, East Cleveland. I don't want this to be underlined. East Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Ohio. Okay. Let's find out where they're at, because obviously things have changed. Where are you at, Boyles? Here we go. Okay. First of all, our street now is Elderwood Avenue. House number is 1603, which is right there, 16003. Okay, who's living in the house? Mary. She's now the head of household. That tells us something important, doesn't it? Who's in the house? George, Mary R., Mary Rita, Paul, Joseph P., John F., Arthur, and Alice, sister-in-law. Now, whose sister-in-law is she? Head of household. So, she's the sister-in-law of Mary Boyle. So, we don't know. Does that mean it was her husband's sister? Or does it mean it's the wife of one of Mary's brothers? We don't know that right now from this information. All right, let's get the ages of everybody. Mary is now 53. George is now 23. Mary Rita is 22. Paul is 21. Joe is 17. Johnny is 15. Art is 14. And then the sister-in-law that's with her is 40. And think about the different reasons that sister-in-law might be there. Okay? Is she there because she became homeless? Is she there to help Mary, who's now a single mom? You know, what's going on here? All right. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting in the 1940 census. They asked a question up top here. Residence April 1st, 1935, because so many people moved during the Great Depression. They want to know, in between the two censuses, at the 5-year mark, where were people? And it turns out they were at a different place, okay? They were in Cleveland instead of East Cleveland, also in Cuyahoga County. So I'm going to make a note down here, lived at different place in Cleveland, 1935. Okay, now there's other questions that are really unusual for the census. Up here it says, I know it's really tough to read, but it says, was this person at work or pay for profit in private non-emergency government work during the week of March 24th of this year? And then the next one says, if not, were they at work assigned at public emergency work? So this is working for like the New Deal programs. If neither work nor assigned to public emergency work, was this person seeking work? Were they looking for a job? If not seeking work, did they have a job? And then if you answered no, was the person engaged in housework or school or something like that? The next one is going to say if at private or non-emergency government work, number of hours worked, if seeking work or assigned to other work, blah, 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 and then occupation. So a lot of these are to try and figure out how bad is the Depression right now in 1940. So if we scoot down to our boils, we're going to find that the head of the household was not at work, she was not seeking work, she was not at public work, she did not have a job, she was working in the house. The H was for housework, okay? So she kept the house. Of the boys and the girl, George, Mary, Paul, all working. So I'm just going to put a W for working. Okay, they're all in their 20s. They're all working to support everybody else. Now, what about Joe, John, and Art? They are all students, as you might expect from their age. I'm just going to put an S for student. All right. Now, hours worked for George, Mary, and Paul. George is working 40. Come on now. My internet is exceptionally bad out here today, and it's making me very angry. Okay, as hopefully I didn't lose too much here. George was working 40 hours a week. Mary was working 48 hours a week. Paul is working 20 hours a week. What are they doing? George is an order clerk for coal. And none of this will work for me again because I've been kicked offline. I am so glad I'm almost done with this because the internet issues are driving me crazy. George is an order clerk selling retail coal. Mary is a sales lady at a department store. And Paul is a clerk at a grocery. Okay. As we go over the next really important thing that I hope to get done before the internet dies on me again is income. How much money did they make in this year? The household income. George made $250 the whole year. Mary made $780 the whole year. And my internet has gone south on me again. Give me a second. Boy, oh boy, do I really hope this works again. What we saw is that George made about $250. Mary made about $780 in the whole year. Paul made about $480 in the whole year. If I add that together, it's going to give me a pretty important part of my story. They made about $1,000, $1,400, about $1,500 a year was the yearly income in this house. Now, I'm going to show you guys later how you can translate that to today's dollars. Actually, let me try to do it right now. If you Google West Egg inflation calculator, you can find out how much money in the past is worth in today's dollars. Now, naturally, that's not going to load for me right now. So why don't I just save that for a future video, since my internet is so lousy today. What I hope you're seeing here, and I'm going to close out all these other things and go exclusively to this. I can create a story about Paul Boyle's life now, okay? Just based on these 3 census records. I can tell when he was born, like 1919 or 1918, that he lived in Newcastle for at least the first 11 years of his life. Then by 1935, he had moved to Cleveland. By 1940, he had moved to another part of Cleveland. I know that at some point, somehow, his dad either died or left the family, and his mom was in charge. I know that they went from being pretty wealthy, where they had a $7,500 house, which again, I'll figure out the calculation for it later. It was a nice house. They went from dad being a contractor and making good money and living in a house to making less than $1,500 a year for their total income in the family. I can start telling a story about this guy, that the Depression was apparently bad to him because he lost his dad somehow. They all ended up very poor. They ended up moving around a lot. There are many, many things I can start to tell in this story just by knowing this information from the census. I also now know the names of and birth years of the brothers and sisters, so I can start to track down relatives to try and learn more of the story. So, I'm sorry for all the start and stop of this video. Thank you for sticking with me, and I hope this was useful to you. Goodbye.